Business Spotlight, brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.
I'm Sonya Farrell. This is Business Spotlight in partnership with Cross Rhythms City Radio and Baba Baboon. Joining me in the studio this week, we've got the lovely Allison Walters, who's from a company called Awscape. Hello, Alison.
Hi, Sonya. Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Good. I just wanted you to explain briefly, what exactly does Awscape stand for and what do you do?
Well, Awscape I founded 7.5 years ago. AW is my initials, Allison Walters. And we are a landscape architectural practice based in Stoke-on-Trent. And we do landscape design, landscape planning, and anything to do with public realm and private realm, gardens, all those sorts of things. So we're a big we're a reasonably sized design practice.
And is there anything in particular with Awscape as well that you really focus on? Like, do you consider the importance of, climate change? Do you consider obviously the environment? Is that a big factor in everything that you do?
Yes. My background is in ecology to start with, and I retrained to become a landscape architect. And as climate change is progressing, landscape architecture is becoming much more important within the industry that I'm involved in, a lot of the construction industry. We're seeing a big increase in the requirements of landscape trees, rain gardens and sustainable drainage. All of these elements help to combat climate change, and meadows, and they all sequester carbon, which is probably some of the hit words that people hear these days. And everything that we do is all about bringing nature into our developments and interacting people with nature and bringing communities back together. That's the way that we design.
So say even like for, towns, city centres where we are right now, why is it important then, do you think, if there is some sort of development going on, or even, regeneration and all those sorts of things, why is it important then for everybody, one, to be aware, but also to consider nature when they're doing certain developments?
Well, there's a requirement within law now called biodiversity net gain, which requires developers to consider and encompass nature within developments. So that's one factor. But the other factor is the fact that we as humans are nature. We often forget that. In fact, I would say there's a lot of people that have actually become very disconnected with nature. And when developments are created, if we don't include those elements, then we're still not bringing people back into touch with those requirements. And not everybody in the towns and cities can actually go out to nature. They don't have the ability to go to the countryside. They may not have transport. And so bringing nature into the towns and cities helps with mental health. It improves air quality. It improves well-being. It actually increases property prices. So in residential developments, it actually improves property prices. And it cools the air as well. So trees within urban spaces, if you ever walk into an urban space where it's purely hard, it's very hot, you add some trees into that environment and it cools it down. It creates a different microclimate and atmosphere for people to actually want to be in. So you have shade and light and shade and opportunities there. So.
And what about transport then? Because obviously, again, is that a big factor as well? Is that the certain things that your industry would look at as well?
So we've, our practice in particular, and there's other practices out there, have been heavily involved in sustainable transport. And when I mean sustainable transport, I mean probably cycleways and cycle routes, which are becoming more prevalent within cities, more so, to reduce the number of cars on the roads. And when these schemes are put in place, traffic is reduced on the road, so we have a lot more space to contend with. And so there's real opportunities to put in much more green infrastructure. So trees can go in the sort of the urban highway, plus things like rain gardens, which add life and colour, but also clean and filter the water and slow the flow, so you don't get the flash floods like we see on hard urban roads. So yes, it's a big factor within landscape architecture of highway design as part and parcel of what we do.
So when you say a rain garden, can you just elaborate a bit on what that sort of looks like and what's involved in that?
So a rain garden is not what you think it is. So a rain garden, everybody assumes has to have boggy, wet plants in. Mm-hmm. But rain gardens spend most of their time dry. So these are a sort of like a ditch, I would say, but a very pretty ditch on the side of a road, or they can be in parks and places like that where we have runoff. And they are filled with a soil that is quick and free draining, like a sandy soil. And on the top of it is like gravel, and then plants are planted within it. And underneath is a drainage layer as well. So the water comes off the road, goes into the rain garden, and slowly percolates down through the soils into the drainage layer. Mm-hmm. And so it slows the flow of water, so we don't get those big, streams and rivers going down the road. So it slows the flow, but it also cleans the water. So what people don't realise is water on roads is extremely dirty. And it's full of silt, but it's also full of petrochemicals and hydrocarbons from your exhaust fumes and things like that. And so rain gardens help to clean the water before it goes into our sewers. So they're really beneficial, but they're not just beneficial for the water, they're beneficial for the environment, because we have lots of lovely plants in there, like perennials, and they're really vibrant and colourful, and they look really good, and they provide life and nature and biodiversity within our towns and cities. So they look amazing, most of the year round. Obviously winter comes and they die off a little bit, but these are really important and integral within our towns and cities now.
Yeah, and from what you're saying there, important in many ways and many beneficial aspects. Again, you mentioned earlier about property prices even going up, and people even coming into towns if this is happening, and people can see something nice but might not necessarily fully understand the impact of what it's doing.
No.
It's obviously a little bit of an attraction if you're walking through somewhere, which is nice, and you want to go in and see maybe the local businesses within a town centre. Yeah,
oh, definitely. I think towns and cities are certainly buying into this element of design. It's not something that should be looked at with a degree of it's a quick fix. It has to be looked at holistically. If we're to regenerate towns and cities, for example, it's not just a rain garden's going to do that. We've got to look at how to encourage people into our public realm, into our towns and into our city centres. At the moment, shops are not the attraction. So what could be our attraction? And, making a place look really good, having things that people can do within the town centres, that's a landscape architect's dream, to be able to do a scheme within a town centre that completely transforms the way people interact with that space.
Yeah, I mean, and then just going on from another side of it as well, sort of residential side. Now, we see new buildings around Stoke-on-Trent going up all the time, or we have done more recently as well and over the years, and apartments and everything. And people, how does it work, or how would you suggest if somebody hasn't, got access to their own garden? Is there anything they can do so where they can have a bit of greenery and a bit of space where they can go and enjoy?
Well, this is where public spaces become really important. So when we have apartment blocks like we're seeing, or conversions from, say, the police station, which is being converted into student accommodation in Hanley, these places don't necessarily have the access to outdoor space that they would need. So the public realm is really important. So community gardens are really important. Gardens that, round where we've got the library the former library and the museum, where we've got some public spaces there, they will become much more invaluable to the communities that are being created within the towns and cities. And so the more apartments that we put in place, the more important the public realm will become. There are opportunities to have roof gardens and roof terraces, and that's something that we've been involved in a care home, would you believe,
right,
where we've put in roof gardens for the residents, and highly successful. And these, where we've got multi-storey buildings, these are really important aspects of the design element, so that people have access to the outdoors and access to nature.
And again, I suppose, what you've touched on, by adding that extra value in that way, again, can only potentially help the value of an actual property as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are studies out there that have shown that property prices do increase when there's a lot more greenery within the vicinity or within visibility of that house. So the more we start to integrate that within our housing developments, new housing developments, I think that it has a benefit for everybody. It has a benefit for the developer because they'll be able to increase their profit margins, but also it has a benefit for the community and the mental health of the people who are going to be living in these places. You know, it's so invaluable that greenery is actually incorporated within our new housing developments, and it is coming, but there is still a lot to do. There's still a lot to do.
I know that's where I was going to come on to next, to be fair, Alison, as well. I know you've been in the industry and what you've done, your experience for many years, but looking into the future or even now, can you see sort of what challenges are still being faced within the industry? Are other organisations becoming more receptive? Is it still now that awareness is still very much needed?
I think I'm on the Landscape Institute Council, so I'm heavily involved in our institute body, and we are actively sort of selling the landscape requirements for us to be involved right at the start. Selling is not the right word, but we want developers to understand that landscape architects are integral right at the beginning, because we will look at the holistic approach of what is there. There's no point in clearing something that is of use to to the people within that development. And there are a lot of developers out there that are really seeing that model and actually taking it on, but there's also quite a few that don't. And smaller developers, often aren't necessarily taking that on board. So we do see quite a lot of small developments that are very hard-edged, and it goes through the planning process, yes, and we go through all that planning process, but there's still it's not enough. And if we have lots of pockets of these smaller housing developments that are very hard and don't have that soft environment, then that has an added impact on the environment. So I think there's a lot to do still. There is a lot to do. And I think in the public realm space, there's a lot to do to green up our towns and cities as well.
And the other thing I was going to mention, you're probably the only landscape architect, or that, in what you do and everything, that I know. Now, do you find, is there issues with even training? Is there issues in education? Is there more talked about in education about the type of industry that you're in? And if there isn't, or what would you, has it changed over the years? Is it becoming again more, younger people, should I say, becoming more interested? Or is it still, again, that education is still a big factor in the future of the kind of work that, that you're involved in?
We've in the landscape architecture in general, there is a significant need for more landscape architects. To be perfectly honest, I didn't even know about landscape architecture until I was 23. Okay. So I was a late bloomer when it comes to landscape architecture. So I'd already done my degree and I'd done everything else. I didn't even know it existed. So there are a lot of people out there that still don't even know that landscape architecture is a thing. They know that architecture is a thing, but they don't know landscape architecture is a thing. And I think it's really important that we get that message out to the schools very early on. And I think nature is a big part of that, getting children access to nature and bringing them on board with that. And sort of having ambassador programs where, children are sort of aligned with design and how that looks outside and how they can design with nature and things like that, which is what we do. But also, I think universities, we've seen some closures of university courses because we haven't had an uptake in that and a demand for it. And I think that's really sad because the industry is crying out for it. There's a huge demand for landscape architecture now because with climate change, there's an increased demand in our services, both on large scale master planning, landscape planning, those sorts of sides of things, right down to the nitty gritty detail. They're two extremes really, but we're in demand because everybody wants that, you know, they need that as part of their developments and part of the work that they do. So yes, it is a problem.
Yeah.
And it needs resolving. So yes, we want to get into schools a lot more and sort of advocate what we do, and colleges, and sort of showcase the type of work that we do.
And locally as well, you know, you're local to Stoke-on-Trent. What do you see actually? Because I know we've talked before, we've talked off air, you have worked sort of throughout the UK with certain projects, but what about locally in Stoke-on-Trent then? And how do you get involved yourself as an organisation within the local communities as well?
Yeah, we're I mean, we've been very much UK based, so we've covered a lot of the UK, and the focus now is really to bring communities together locally. There's some amazing community interest companies out there doing fantastic work, and I've been getting in touch with them to try and understand how they can all start working together, and not necessarily in isolation. So, but I think as a city, you know, as a landscape architect in a city like this, it's quite an exciting opportunity to be able to sort of bring the 6 towns together, really, and see how that can work. And I'm not sure we've managed to achieve that over the many years that I've lived here, you know, and grown up here. So I think there's an opportunity to do that, and I think the community focused work is a way of bringing people together in our 6 towns and changing and transforming our city for the better, and using green infrastructure and the green network to do that.
So it's interesting what you say there, you know, with all the towns that we have within Stoke-on-Trent. Have you got any view on how you could see potentially how to bring them together with what you do in your industry?
Transport is obviously a big thing to do with the 6 towns. We obviously got a big road network, the A500 and the A50 that run through the city, but they're not necessarily the best connectors. And I think we have a fantastic canal network. We've got existing rail infrastructure. We've got decommissioned rail infrastructure. And all of these factors are, you know, part and parcel of how we could connect our cities. But I think it's looking at opportunities of moving that forward. There is a transport, I think it's a highways forum that's come out at the moment. It was a survey to look at how we can actually connect our cities together, connect our 6 towns together, and I think that's due up today to actually be able to feed back into that. But you know, those elements are really important to connect the towns together. But I also think that the towns should not compete for the services that they provide. Each one needs to have a unique identity. They are unique in their style, you know, and what they have to offer. And I think if we use the community interest companies and really involve them and the charities that work in those areas as well, to actually create that uniqueness and express that uniqueness within those towns, then I think that the city has a fantastic base in which to create an amazing opportunity for Stoke.
Collaboration, opportunity, network,
amazing.
All for the future.
All for the future, yeah.
Alison, thank you so much for coming on Business Spotlight. Will you come back?
Yes.
I'm sure you will.
Having me.
That's Allison Walters from Awscape here on Business Spotlight with me, Sonya Farrell.
Business Spotlight, shining a light on our local business community. Brought to you by Cross Rhythms and Baba Baboon.